In a land not so far away, there stood an old barn. It was red and weathered, with paint peeling off its sides. Inside lived a creature most peculiar. It was Barney, a purple dinosaur with an insatiable appetite. Barney was no ordinary dinosaur. He was a glutton of the worst kind. Day and night Barney ate. He devoured everything in sight. The hay in the loft disappeared. The mice fled in terror. Even the barn cats dared not enter. Barney's stomach was a bottomless pit. His hunger knew no bounds. The villagers whispered about the strange noises from the barn. They spoke of growls and grunts, of crunching bones and snapping jaws, but none dared venture close. For Barney's appetite was not limited to hay and mice. No, Barney had a taste for something far more sinister. As days turned to weeks, Barney grew larger. His purple scales stretched taut over his bulging form. His eyes, once friendly, now gleamed with a hungry light. The barn creaked under his weight, and still Barney ate, for in his gluttonous heart he knew only one truth: he must consume or be consumed. In the village lived a wise law enforcer named Largoth. He was tall and stern, with eyes that missed nothing. Largoth had heard the rumors about the barn. He had seen the fear in the villagers' eyes, and he knew something must be done. One sunny morning, Largoth called a meeting in the village square. His voice boomed across the crowd. "Listen well," he said. "A great danger lurks in the old barn." The villagers huddled close, their faces pale with worry. Largoth's words were grave and clear. "Stay away from the barn," he warned. "For your own safety, do not approach." Largoth explained the nature of the threat. He spoke of Barney's insatiable hunger, of the dinosaur's growing size and strength. "The creature in the barn is not to be trifled with," he said. "It knows only hunger and will stop at nothing to satisfy it." The villagers nodded, their eyes wide with fear, but Largoth's warning was not just about Barney. It was about the importance of rules. "We have laws for a reason," he said. "They keep us safe. They protect us from harm." His gaze swept over the crowd. "Ignore these laws at your own peril," he cautioned, "for the price of disobedience can be very high indeed." Among the villagers was a young man named Katty. He was known for his bravery and curiosity. Katty had listened to Largoth's warning with skepticism. He didn't believe in monsters or gluttonous dinosaurs. Surely, he thought, this was all just a tale to scare children. That night, as the village slept, Katty made a decision. He would prove everyone wrong. He would enter the barn and show there was nothing to fear. Katty packed a lantern and some food. He told no one of his plans. In the dark of night, he slipped away from his home. As Katty approached the barn, he felt a shiver of excitement. The old structure loomed before him, dark and forbidding. He could hear strange noises from within, growls and grunts that made his hair stand on end. But Katty was not deterred. He was sure he could handle whatever lay inside. With a deep breath, Katty pushed open the barn door. It creaked loudly in the silence of the night. He held up his lantern, peering into the gloom. For a moment, all was still. Then in the flickering light, Katty saw something move, something large and purple, and very, very hungry. Katty's heart pounded as he stepped into the barn. The air was thick with the stench of decay. His lantern cast eerie shadows on the walls, and there in the center of the barn stood Barney. The dinosaur was even larger than Katty had imagined. Its purple scales gleamed dully in the lamplight. Barney's eyes fixed on Katty. They were filled with a terrible hunger. The dinosaur's mouth opened, revealing rows of sharp teeth. Katty realized too late the grave mistake he had made. He turned to run, but Barney was faster. With a roar that shook the barn, the dinosaur lunged. Katty's screams echoed through the night, but there was no one to hear him, no one to come to his aid. Barney's jaws snapped shut with a sickening crunch. The lantern fell, shattering on the barn floor. In the sudden darkness there was only the sound of tearing and chewing. When dawn broke, the village awoke to tragedy. Katty was gone. His family searched in vain, but Largoff knew the truth. He had warned them all, and now a young life had been lost. The price of curiosity and disobedience had been paid in full. Largoff knew he had to act. The threat in the barn could no longer be ignored. He gathered a group of brave villagers. They armed themselves with pitchforks and torches. With heavy hearts, they marched to the old barn. The time had come to end Barney's reign of terror. As they approached, they could hear Barney's roars. The barn shook with the dinosaur's movements. Largoff steeled himself for what was to come. He pushed open the barn door, leading the charge. Inside, Barney waited, his eyes gleaming with malice and hunger. The battle was fierce and terrible. Barney's strength was immense, fueled by his gluttony. He lashed out with tail and claw. Many villagers fell, injured but alive. Largoff fought with all his might. He dodged Barney's attacks, looking for a weakness. Finally, Largoff saw his chance. As Barney reared up, exposing his belly, Largoff struck. His pitchfork found its mark. With a howl of pain and rage, Barney fell. The barn shuddered with the impact. As dust settled, silence fell. Barney, the gluttonous dinosaur, was no more. In the aftermath of the battle, the village mourned. They mourned for Katty lost to Barney's hunger. They mourned for the innocence they had lost. Largoff stood before them once more in the village square. His face was grim, his words heavy with sorrow and wisdom. "We have paid a high price for our folly," he said. "We ignored the warnings. We let curiosity overcome caution." The villagers hung their heads in shame. They knew the truth of Largoff's words. "Laws and rules exist to protect us," Largoff continued. "When we ignore them, we put ourselves and others at risk." Largoff's gaze swept over the crowd. "Let Katty fate be a lesson to us all," he said. "Obey the laws. Heed the warnings of those wiser than ourselves." The villagers nodded, tears in their eyes. They had learned their lesson, but at what cost? As the sun set on the village, a new understanding dawned. The importance of rules and wisdom had been etched into their hearts. They vowed to honor Katty's memory by living well and obeying the laws, for they now knew the truth. A life lived in defiance of wisdom is a life at risk, and the price of disobedience can be higher than anyone can bear.